Hello, you're watching movie snapshot scenes, and this is the summary of The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. After catching their first glimpse of the lonely mountain, Bilbo and the dwarves pressed on, their goal drawing ever closer. But reaching the mountain would not be easy. Orcs still hunted them, and darker forces had begun to stir in the world. The company had little time to rest. The adventure was only growing more dangerous. As they traveled through wild lands, the group sought help from a skin changer named Beorn. By day, he was a towering man. By night, he became a massive bear. Beorn had no love for orcs or goblins, and although he was wary of strangers, he offered them shelter and horses for their journey. His home, nestled in the edge of the wild, became a brief moment of safety. With Beorn's help, the company made their way to the edge of the dark and twisted forest of Mirkwood. Gandalf, troubled by the signs of a greater evil, announced he could not go with them. He had to investigate rumors of a dark power rising in the ruins of Dol Guldur. Reluctantly, the company entered Mirkwood without him. The forest was thick and strange, filled with illusions, whispering shadows, and a heavy, disorienting darkness. Time moved oddly there, and soon the group became lost. Food ran low, tensions grew. Then came the spiders, huge, horrifying creatures, descended from the trees and wrapped the dwarves in webs. Bilbo, now growing into his role as more than just a quiet hobbit, fought the spiders with fierce determination. He used his small elvish blade, now named Sting, to rescue his friends, proving once again that courage isn't about size. After the battle, Bilbo noticed something disturbing. He had used the One Ring during the fight, and while it helped him stay hidden, it also made him feel different. A dark feeling had crept in, and he didn't quite understand it. The ring was beginning to affect him. The company didn't have time to dwell on it. They were soon captured by the woodland elves, led by Thranduil, the Elven king. The dwarves were thrown into cells, and things looked grim once again. But Bilbo, still invisible thanks to the ring, was already planning a way out. Deep beneath the halls of the woodland realm, Thorin and his company sat imprisoned. Thranduil, the Elven king, had offered Thorin a deal, help in reclaiming Erebor in exchange for a share of the treasure. But Thorin, proud and stubborn, refused. Old tensions between dwarves and elves ran deep, and he had no interest in bargains. Meanwhile, Bilbo remained free, unseen thanks to the magic ring. While the dwarves languished in their cells, Bilbo quietly explored the Elven King's halls, observing guards, mapping passageways, and looking for a way out. Though the elves had captured them, their underground kingdom was filled with beauty and light, graceful architecture carved into the stone, flowing rivers, and golden leaves. Bilbo's plan was bold and a little absurd. He discovered a system of barrels used to ship goods down the river to Laketown. With careful timing, he freed the dwarves from their cells and led them into the storage hall. As the elves prepared a shipment, Bilbo stuffed each dwarf into an empty barrel and sent them rolling and crashing down a chute, straight into the rushing river. Bilbo, of course, hadn't thought through his own escape. In the chaos, he barely managed to leap onto a barrel himself, soaked and clinging for dear life. The escape didn't go unnoticed. Elven guards gave chase, arrows flying through the trees. And as if things weren't bad enough, a pack of orcs ambushed them along the riverbanks. What followed was a chaotic, wild ride. Barrels bouncing, dwarves fighting from inside wooden casks, and arrows slicing through the air. In the middle of it all, a new figure appeared. Legolas, Prince of the Woodland Realm, swift and deadly with his bow. Fighting alongside him was Tauriel, a fierce warrior elf with sharp blades and a rebellious spirit. They battled the orcs, trying to regain control, but the dwarves escaped. Downriver, battered and bruised, the company finally reached safety. A man named Bard helped them ashore near the shores of Laketown, a gloomy settlement in the shadow of the lonely mountain. They were closer than ever to their goal, but danger was still hot on their trail. Wet, bruised and exhausted, the company arrived at the gates of Laketown, also known as Escalotes. It was a cold, damp settlement built on wooden stilts above the waters of a long lake. Its people were weary and poor, living in the shadow of the lonely mountain, fearful of the dragon who slept inside it. They were led into the town by Bard, a grim but brave bargeman with sharp eyes and a quiet strength. Bard didn't trust Thorin or his promises of gold, but he had a strong sense of justice. He believed his people deserved better, and he suspected that the dwarves' arrival could stir up great danger. Thorin, however, saw Laketown as a stepping stone toward his destiny. Once inside, he revealed his true identity as Thorin, son of Thrain, rightful heir to Erebor. He vowed to kill the dragon and share the treasure with the people of Laketown. The townsfolk, desperate for hope and prosperity, cheered, but Bard remained skeptical. He warned them that waking the dragon could bring ruin. Thorin ignored the warning. He was focused only on reclaiming his home. Meanwhile, the master of Laketown, a greedy and pompous man, welcomed Thorin, more out of self-interest than goodwill. He saw an opportunity to gain wealth and fame by helping the dwarves. Bard openly opposed the plan, but his warnings were dismissed. Bilbo, too, was uneasy. The closer they got to the mountain, the more he could feel the weight of the ring in his pocket and the fear growing in his heart. As the dwarves prepared to leave, Bard returned to his family, his daughter and 2 sons, and quietly read an old prophecy. The Lord of Dale will return, and the bells shall ring in gladness. The shadow will fall upon the mountain once more. The words chilled him. With supplies from the town and the blessing of its people, Thorin and the company left Laketown and approached the lonely mountain at last. Its cold, stony sides loomed above them like a sleeping giant. Inside, buried beneath centuries of gold, the dragon Smaug still slumbered, unaware that his enemies were coming. At long last, the company reached the base of the lonely mountain. The once great kingdom of Erebor stood silent and cold before them, its mighty stone walls weathered by time. A chilling wind howled through the broken ruins as the dwarves gazed up at the home they had lost so long ago. Their first task was to find the secret entrance mentioned on Thorin's map, an old, hidden door that could only be revealed under specific conditions. They climbed narrow paths, crossed ledges, and searched the mountainside tirelessly. Days passed, hope faded. Then, on Durin's Day, the last light of the setting sun finally struck the keyhole carved into the rock. The moonlight revealed what had been hidden, just as the prophecy foretold. With Thorin's key, they unlocked the door. Stone ground against stone, revealing a narrow tunnel leading deep into the mountain. No one spoke. The silence of the mountain was heavy, as though it were holding its breath. Thorin, overcome with emotion, stood before the entrance to his homeland. But fear lingered. Smaug, the dragon who had stolen Erebor, still lay inside. Somewhere beneath, piles of gold. Rather than risk the entire company, Thorin sent Bilbo in alone. It was time for the Hobbit to fulfill his role as burglar. Bilbo, clutching his sword sting and wearing the one ring for invisibility, crept through the dark, winding tunnels of Erebor. His footsteps echoed faintly as he moved deeper into the mountain's heart. And then, he saw it. A vast chamber filled with an ocean of gold. Coins, jewels, armor and weapons were piled high in glittering waves, and there, sleeping atop it, all was Smaug. A massive dragon with scales like golden armor and eyes closed in a fearsome, uneasy slumber. Bilbo's breath caught in his throat. The treasure was dazzling, but the danger was greater than anything he had faced. He spotted a shining gem, the Arkenstone, the heart of the mountain, and moved toward it, careful not to wake the beast. But even the tiniest sound could awaken a dragon. And beneath the gold, Smaug's eye twitched. Bilbo stood frozen in the mountain's golden heart, staring at the slumbering beast before him. Smaug was unlike anything he had imagined, massive, majestic, and terrifying. His scales glimmered like molten metal, and each breath made the treasure beneath him shift and ripple like waves on the sea. Bilbo crept carefully across the treasure hoard, eyes locked on the Arkenstone, the jewel Thorin desperately sought. He managed to get close, climbing over gold and relics of dwarven history. But in his search, a single coin slipped and clinked loudly. Smaug stirred. The dragon's great eyes snapped open, fiery and filled with ancient malice. His head rose from the sea of gold, sniffing the air. Though Bilbo wore the one ring, the dragon could sense him, something small and unseen, but not unnoticed. What followed was a dangerous game of words. Smaug slithered through the gold, his booming voice echoing off the stone walls as he searched for the intruder. Bilbo, invisible and terrified, tried to stay hidden while answering the dragon's questions with clever riddles. But Smaug was not easily fooled. He spoke of Thorin's greed and warned Bilbo that the dwarves would betray him once they reclaimed their treasure. He sensed the corruption growing in Thorin's heart, the same sickness that once cursed the mountain. The dragon's words planted a seed of doubt. As Smaug moved, Bilbo noticed something crucial. A bare patch in his otherwise impenetrable chest, a small gap in his armored scales. It was a weakness. Bilbo escaped just in time, running through the endless corridors as Smaug unleashed his fury. Meanwhile, Thorin and the dwarves entered the mountain to find Bilbo. Soon, they were all caught in a desperate fight for survival. They tried to trap Smaug inside the mountain using furnaces, chains, and molten gold. It was bold and chaotic, but the dragon was too powerful. Furious, drenched in gold, and roaring with rage, Smaug burst out of the mountain. With wings stretched wide and fire in his throat, he flew toward Laketown, determined to punish those who aided the dwarves. From below, Bilbo watched in horror. "The dragon is coming," he whispered. The sky above the lonely mountain burned red as Smaug soared through the air, leaving trails of fire in his wake. The mountain rumbled behind him, still echoing with the fury he unleashed upon the dwarves. He had been disturbed, challenged, and covered in molten gold, and now his wrath was aimed at Laketown. Below, Bilbo and the dwarves stood in stunned silence at the mountain's edge. They had survived the dragon's fury, for now, but at a terrible cost. Thorin looked out over the land, eyes fixed not on Smaug, but on Erebor's treasure. His obsession had grown stronger. The Arkenstone still eluded him, but he could feel the gold calling to him, whispering promises of power and kingship. Bilbo, holding the Arkenstone in secret, said nothing. He could feel the change in Thorin, his words sharper, his gaze colder. The Hobbit had come on this journey for adventure, but now he feared what the treasure was doing to his friend. Far away, Laketown lay unaware of the danger speeding toward it. Families went about their evening routines. Fishermen docked there. Boats and children laughed in the streets. Only Bard, the grim-faced bargeman, felt the weight of the coming doom. He had long warned that the dragon would return, and now his fears were becoming real. Bard rushed to prepare, but the town's master, foolish and greedy, ignored the warnings. He mocked Bard's concern, assuring the people they were safe. They weren't. Above the clouds, Smaug flew faster, his eyes burning with hatred. "I am fire, I am death," he roared, his wings slicing through the wind like blades. He saw the twinkling lights of Laketown in the distance and aimed straight for them. As Bilbo watched from the mountain, his heart sank. "What have we done?" he whispered. Smaug descended upon the town like a comet, fire building in his throat, destruction imminent. The dwarves had awakened the dragon. Now the people of Laketown would pay the price. And so ended this chapter of their journey, not with triumph, but with terror streaking across the sky.